that's been made by the entering of women in the workforce, a fair measure of progress in the area of diversity and improving the contribution of both genders. Are we sacrificing the development of the next generation as more mothers are spending more time working, especially of the current and the previous generation of the middle class in Asia? Very often, especially in Hong Kong, Singapore, and Malaysia, being raised from cradle to teens by either grandparents or more often than not domestic helpers. Perhaps we could rethink what constitutes fair participation and how to measure progress in achieving that. After all, shouldn't we look at an improvement in quality of life, not only for women and men, but for family as well? I was curious what you think about this. Thank you very much.
Hi, a very hot topic right now for the Singapore government, actually. I think Singapore is going through a period of time where, no doubt, we ourselves are beginning to redefine what makes society a better place for all of us, not just for women, but for men as well. All of us are now being judged by not just our economic achievements, but how we are also looking to the less fortunate, the less privileged amongst us. So it's a very timely question, and thank you for that. For a long, long while, we as Singaporeans were always judged by what job you'll finally get when you achieve your academic success. So it's going to be a slow process for us to get to where we want to be, but certainly I see that mindset slowly but surely shifting already for us to become a more holistic environment for us to measure the worth of a person, not just a woman.
Thank you. Any other comments on that? Yeah?
As we enter 4 billion households pretty much every week, it's pretty important that those households are very functioning. And I have a lot of heart for what you're asking, and throughout my life I was brought up where my mum was actually working as well. Hopefully I'm doing okay. But I really value the family proposition, and it's a question of how do you make sure, whether it's because you have to work in order to support the family, or whether it's because you want to do it and you want to accomplish and actually be an inspiration. And one of the things I found fascinating is that in the experience that I've witnessed is when the household is happy or feels safe, that is when the best environment flourishes for the children ahead. And at Procter & Gamble, what we're trying to do is be able to bring the great thinking and the great aspirations of the different diverse backgrounds of people and set them up in a way where they can be in an environment that can work towards them. I mentioned Flex at Work a little earlier, and that combines a very individual development. It's not just a system that says you can work 3 hours a week if you want and you get paid that. It's not a system which says you can take a sabbatical for a month once every 10 years. It's basically an agreement between the individual and their manager about what can work best for them. Working from home, flexible locations, and things like that are really what we're trying to instill, because if we can bridge both of those needs, then I really believe that we can then have an even greater competitive advantage. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but that's just, I think, how we've been trying to think about it at P&G.
I think as we evolve, there will be more inclusiveness in terms of diversity, including the young men, to the point about family. Now I know that at the level of government, and I know that Singapore at one time was almost, I say almost, because this is going to be a very sensitive remark, getting to the point of track where if you're a graduate of Cambridge University, you're automatically assured of a very senior job in the civil service. So what I'm going to ask is, it is tempting because it's Women's Day and, we're talking about women and the families are all women. One of them is asking why the families are all women. So I'll be sort of the male advocate here as well. What about educational qualifications? In the creative circles, it's very known that if you have a brainstorming session where the person with the least educational qualification is not present, you're not going to be as creative anyway with sharing. So are corporations and business cases also looking that way, that in any kind of viable, robust, creative organization moving forward, that you don't just get a whole assemblage of PhDs and MAs and all of that. There's a wide spectrum from very different universities. Yeah? There's also diversity, right?
Sure. There are conversations in terms of board composition, reflecting what you were saying. Sometimes people think, it's the boardroom, there must be some accountants, some lawyers in there, obviously some people who know the business. But the world is changing, and so sometimes now companies are saying, we need different skills on our board. For instance, social media is making such an impact for businesses today. Some boards are saying, we need people who better understand social media or understand IT, because IT is really helping us and enabling our businesses. So the skills are really starting to change in terms of how boards see an effective board.
Very, very important. Any other question from the floor? I'll give you an example. Many years ago, in the University of Iowa, the new director for creative writing found himself in a bit of a problem. He had no money to buy a house. So he went to the banks, and was speaking, and the bank said, you got collateral. And the guy said, I don't have a collateral, I don't have anything. And the guy said, I'm sure, come on, he said, David, there must be something you can offer me. And the guy said, well, I've got my new novel, which I've written in manuscript. Can I use that as a collateral? It's got a landmark, case in the sense of people saying, okay, give me your manuscript, and the Bank of Iowa has been living off the royalties almost since then, which is in the late 70s. And this guy, David, said that it was interesting that the people who actually objected to him were, the people who thought that one, he wouldn't make it, and two, those who are actually of the same ilk. People who are basically thinking the same. Now, the manager of the branch that actually said, go ahead and give me that manuscript, came from a non-financial background. He came, he was a literature graduate, and so he was very partial. So what I'm trying to say is that diversity can sometimes be very, very interesting for this odd victory in organizations. Do you know what I mean? That his ROI on that, $12,000 loan with the novel was far in excess of the percentage that you could have got in terms of annual ROI, 5% or 7% or 8%. So we keep coming back to this, and this, that thing over there keeps on staring at me, the business case, right, for diversity and inclusion. And I'm trying to bring this to some kind of a close by asking you, in terms of diversity representation in leadership, what are your views? Business leadership and diversity. Yeah.
Can I just link to the story
Please.
you were talking about? And I'm actually going to ask, how did it turn out for David? Did he get the loan or? Basically, I'll talk about when I was running ASEAN, which is Southeast Asia. We'd basically looked at how the government structured in order for how we would structure the smaller markets in Asia Pacific in a way where we were running together. And the restructure is not the story, but the story is the single story that the ASEAN employees told themselves about their career potential. And when they were up against the Chinese or the Indians, who were a big part of our organization, they felt that, as an ASEAN employee, I'm only going to get to a certain level. Now, I thought this was just in the hallways, but I was doing a presentation, and this was back in 2006 when I first took on the assignment. And we found that there was feedback on this presentation, and it was about career development and leadership potential. And there was a quote in there, and it was one individual, but I love them for doing it. So you talk about the power of the individual. And they said, well, I'm at this level, and it was a level relevant to Procter & Gamble, mid-management level, and I'm an ASEAN employee, therefore I'm not going to make it any higher. And they've been telling themselves this story for years, that you don't develop higher. So what we did was we made sure, one, that we helped correct that perception. And we have some very senior managers. Perinda Hastagnon Thai, General Manager, runs my SK2 Global business. Charles Lim is the Asia Head of HR, Indonesian. And basically, we made sure that we got in place an inclusive environment whereby people felt they could have mentors. They felt they were getting training for what might be missing, of why they felt they couldn't excel at certain levels. And what's really terrific now is we've made leaps and bounds of progress in senior management now from the ASEAN community. For example, Mu Ling is our Asia IT Director. She's Singaporean. And what's really terrific is also the business grew at the same time in leaps and bounds. So I just wanted to just come back on that comment about the single story. You were talking about how others in David's industry were saying he wasn't really viable with his collateral. So I just thought that was quite powerful of how you can really convince yourself that you're not worthy, or that your peers, if you're talking to the same people, you will convince yourself of the same thing. So that's just sparked something on my mind.
Thanks a lot, Joanne. Any last burning questions from the floor before I ask our panelists to give us their final concluding remarks? Everybody is quite happy? Right, that's wonderful. We've got 4 remarkable women over here, and I think it's only fair to give them the last word or words. So in 1 minute, would you like to sum up your case for diversity and inclusion? Starting with you, Ms. Juanita.
Okay. Board of Gender has been publishing some research in terms of female participation in the boardroom. We think there are many untapped women for board positions, and we in 2012 will help to see how we can make the connections between boards and women. So the statement that I started with at the very beginning for you to walk away and remember is that a gender-balanced board simply makes good business.
Can I just be provocative and ask you very quickly, are you going to have like Occupy Boards movement? Like, you know, Occupy Wall Street, like you're going to champion such a thing?
No.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Okay, Penny, yeah.
I actually would really like to hear from the audience, because I worry that we can keep talking here and maybe it's not having an impact. I want to make 2 points in conclusion. I've talked about the business case, and I think there is no question that there is a strong business case for diversity. And quite frankly, all of us, our businesses, we as individuals, our organisations, be they corporations, be they not-for-profits, will all do better in terms of innovation and performance with diversity, gender diversity, but also diversity writ broadly at senior levels. Point 1. Point 2, and this is speaking in a personal capacity, I worry sometimes that I have to make a business case for what should just simply be a question of extending to other people a degree of respect and actually just carrying yourself ethically and believing that everyone has a right to participate and do and bring to the table what they can, irrespective of gender, disability, nationality. You know, at the end of the day, it's actually about being human, and it's about looking at the people around you and recognizing that everybody has got something to bring to the table. Dollars and cents aside, I think that there's a human justice perspective that we need to have in the question as well.
Very well said. Thanks, Benny, for reminding us.
Since I've been very provocative the whole day, I might as well end on a provocative note as well. The fastest way for women to enter the C-suite, in my opinion, is for women to become entrepreneurs. That way you become CEO. You put your friends or women that believe in your cause as the rest of the C-suite. Women in corporates, subtle discrimination does exist, overt as well. So I'll leave you at that. Women entrepreneurs versus women in corporates. Thank you.
Okay, I think it's fairly clear that I see diversity and inclusion as a competitive advantage, but I want to be clear at all levels. Not everyone does aspire to be the CEO, so it's about what you really want to be, what you want to be doing. And I think it's really important in terms of the work you're trying to do and therefore be successful at it. And there is a clear business case from the diversity of thought. And how that gets brought together is not just male-female, but it's the broader area I talked about earlier. And whether it be race, age, etc. And the key thing is that it's not about just getting the numbers, it's about actually building an environment where everyone is valued, everyone's included, and everyone can work to their peak performance. And I'm going to end quickly, don't worry, and do what I always do at P&G at presentations, which is if you see an example where you don't feel that's the case, please contact me on cruise.j@pg.com. And if you see someone that's in a situation where they don't feel that they can make a case or statement, look out for them. You guys are passionate enough to be here today, so please let's make sure that we continue the communication, the conversation, because yes, we are still talking about this still after many years.
Thank you very much. That's really wonderful. I just want to thank everyone for